Hello, everybody. Graham Cofe with another My Music. Now, I'm feeling quite sprightly today because they let me out of the cage yesterday. I actually got away from these four walls. I spent the day in Exeter talking to real people up close and personal, which was lovely. And thank you to all those people that I've met, and especially thank you to all of those people that said that they'd listened to the podcast. That's a wonderful thing. It's always nice to meet people in real life. Otherwise, you just end up feeling like you're talking to yourself. And although because like people write comments and stuff, you just feel like sometimes it's like a bit of a, an unreal life. So it's nice when you get out there. And maybe I'll talk to my guest Emma about that as well. Because sometimes I feel like musicians feel that way when they've been cooped up in the studio for a long period of time as well. So there we go. We'll be back to talk to Emma straight after this.
Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop.
Emma, thanks for joining me. I mean, you're quite a technical writer when it comes to production and music, etc. So you must spend hours in a studio just honing, etc.
Yeah,
Do you get a bit of cabin fever?
No, actually, because I really love spending time on my own. It's actually where I feel the most inspired and the most kind of, I think when I'm not surrounded by kind of the chaos of life, that's the time when I am ready to create. And I just get too absorbed in it sometime and actually need to force myself to take breaks.
Right. Do you find though that you then need to go back out into life in order to get the inspiration to write the next bit, etc.? Is there a point where it kind of like dries up and you think, right, I've got to go back to the chaos for a bit?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is a strange concept that you kind of have all these experiences in life and then you kind of take yourself away from those to actually write about them and to create music from them. And it is quite a separate experience. But I find some of the writing sort of takes place in like this in-between space, especially if you are the kind of musician that makes your own demos yourself and does quite a lot of the music production. It sort of happens within the life experience. And then you kind of take this almost semi-finished product into a more closed-off studio space, and then that's where, for me personally, that's where then the real fine-tuning of everything happens. But
that's quite interesting.
Every now and again, I have to kind of take a pause because you do get too kind of over-involved in the kind of creation of the music, and you forget to go and live life to have things to write about.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. What you talk about bits that you do in those in-between spaces. What sort of things do you do in those in-between spaces? Are you making notes on your phone? Are you humming little tunes, or do you have like an iPad? Are you in GarageBand or anything like that? Just putting down beats, or what bits do you do?
So obviously everyone has like a few different ways that they kind of collect information that they use for songwriting. Sometimes for me, it might be in the form of just writing little sentences and ideas of things I want to write about in the notes in my phone. Or sometimes, one time actually, I've just recently written a song and I was just walking along and I was just like deep in thought about something. And then they had this like lyrical idea. And then while I was walking, I composed the whole song and recorded it in tiny little snippets of voice notes on my phone and wrote the lyrics. Then when I got home, had to figure out how to then put that to having background music to it. And it's actually one of my favorite songs I've written recently. It was a really unusual way to write it. But yeah, so that can happen. Or sometimes I'll just really want to do something creative, mess around on Ableton, like try out some new things. And then that kind of will evolve into a song. Or I'll just pick up my guitar and I'll just feel sad about something and just want to write a song, and it will work like that too.
It's brilliant, isn't it? It's brilliant. And look, journalists like me ask people the same question about how they write songs over and over again, and it's wonderful that actually it doesn't matter how many times that question gets asked, the answers tend to come back exactly the same. There is no formula. There is no formula. Do you feel that, especially living in the age that we do now, especially for young musicians, it almost feels like, because of all of the information that's out there about how to write songs and how to produce and how to do this, and you can go on YouTube and you know, the university of life is out there, that it almost feels like there's too much information out there about that is too formulaic, that is trying to say, actually, you should be doing it like this, you should be doing it like that. And that actually, they're just trying to explain a creative process, which doesn't necessarily work like that.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I think I have quite mixed opinions on this, because I think it's so important for that information to be out there, especially for people that like can't afford to go and study the technical sides of music if that's what they want to learn. And it sort of shows you the possibilities of what you can do with your own exploration rather than studying a course, because you can just pick and choose what things you want to learn, and then you can use that in your own music. But then, because there is so much information, it's confusing for you to figure out what you want to do and how you want to be as an artist, because you can fall into this trap of like, right, I'm just going to see what everyone else is doing, and if that's successful, maybe that's what I should be doing. And then you forget to just explore yourself, and that actually everyone's exploring, everyone's learning. Even really, really successful musicians, producers, or anyone in the music industry, we are all still learning, no matter what level we're at. And you have to find your own little path, but take little bits of information as you go along.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, listen, some of your songs lyrically are quite personal and deeply sort of raw and you know, honest, etc. Do you ever worry when you put stuff like that out, that how people are going to respond to that, or that, you know, people that you know are personal to you are going to go, oh, is that me?
Yeah, I mean, I've never really worried about it. I think mostly because generally in my life, with people that are close with me, know that I'm very open about how I feel about things. Like, a lot of my discussions with my friends are based around life and how you feel and kind of the difficulties that we go through. And I find it hard to connect with people that don't want to share that side of them with me. So I don't really feel like a fear in that sense, because that's kind of how I'm living. But sometimes I've had to be careful about making a song slightly more vague in certain parts, or slightly kinder than I want to be if I'm like hurt by something, because I am aware that even if I'm feeling a certain way, I am writing this song about a whole other human being, and they have their own reasons for being the way that they are, and maybe how I've received something is not what they intended, and I'd never want to hurt someone with a song.
But then that actually, I mean, that just actually says that not only are you an empathetic person, but you're also a person that perhaps understands humanness quite well, and that's probably why you write in the way that you do as well. I do think that there's a lot of people out there. It's a thing that I talk about all the time, but I think there's a lot of people that make assumptions about the way other people perceive information or receive information or see, or just see the world. And I think, you know, being able to look at the world and understand that not everybody sees the world the way that we do it is a real skill. Do you think that as well?
Yeah, I feel like it's something that I've spent a lot of years kind of looking into and researching and like understanding, because I'm just so intrigued about other people and how different other people can be. And a lot of other people's behavior I don't understand. So I've had to get to a point of sort of, if I don't understand it, just accepting it and that it's not for me. Because I think someone can behave in a way that can really, really hurt someone else without the intention of that and without them being a bad person. And it doesn't make their behavior okay or acceptable, but you can also appreciate that, like, as humans, we are a product of what's happened to us in our lives. And often I'll just think, if someone is behaving like that, how difficult it must be to be them if that's the kind of energy that they're putting out into the world. And you can just say that that's not an energy that I want, and just don't separate yourself from that if it's something that's causing too much chaos for you. That you can't like everybody that you meet. You can't connect with everybody that you meet, and it's sort of accepting that sometimes a connection just isn't meant to be made without being angry at someone for being the way they are, because you do never truly know what anyone else is experiencing.
No,
ever,
you don't.
really.
Sorry, I had to change my camera in the middle of that. I told you I had technical difficulties before we started this interview this morning. I think this camera is getting a little bit hot. I think it might be on its last legs, unfortunately, so I might have to go and spend some money later today. But there you go. Technical things do happen. Do you find that? I mean, actually, when you make, it's a really good point. When you make music that is so technical, do you have like tech problems sometimes, and can you lose huge amounts of time over that?
It can happen, and I think when you're less experienced with the tech you're using, that's when it's the most stressful, because even people that know a lot of tech, it's more that you just know all the things to try and problem solve. You don't necessarily know the answer, but you know how to explore to find how to fix something. And recently I've transitioned from performing more just with my guitar and singing to having like a whole technical setup, and it's terrifying. It's terrifying that like, this is my equipment, I'm expected to know how to use it, I'm the one that's going to need to fix it. And the first time that I did a show when I was in charge of everything was really terrifying, and I actually got my producer to come along and be there for the whole setup and the whole event in case something went wrong and it was beyond my skill set. So I thought it just felt like such an embarrassing situation to be up on the stage and not know how to fix it, but maybe I should be able to.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's nice though that you've kind of started your sort of performing career with just a guitar though, because there's always that to go back to, right?
And I think in the middle of a set, I love still doing some stripped back songs. I feel like they're kind of more powerful. If you do like an hour of just guitar and vocals, a percentage of people are going to sometimes switch off. Whereas I just like performing the music more how it's released. And then you have those two songs that are stripped back and they just hit you so much harder.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like you're now just peeling back the shell a little bit more and just giving people something a little bit more raw for a moment or two. In terms of your production, I mean, who are producers that you've aspired or have inspired you?
Two producers that I'm super inspired by. One of them is Phineas. I've been like following his own music for years, and I love all of the really bizarre and sometimes excruciatingly unenjoyable sounds that he puts into music, and he makes it make sense. And it's like, it's so clever, and like to be able to take things that on their own would not be enjoyable, put them together and it be such a cool piece of music, for me is really, really inspiring.
Well, it's interesting that actually it was actually a sound that captured his sister's imagination and actually got his sister into music, as opposed to a song full stop. Really, I often think that is something that probably captures a lot of us out there, is that, rather than necessarily just hearing a song, it's that little, ooh, what's that appeared in that piece of music that suddenly makes us think, wouldn't it be great if I could do that? Wouldn't it be great if I could, capture people and really take them on an emotive journey just with those little sounds? So,
I think it's showing you to not be stuck in a box. And I think Jacob Collier talks about this a lot. Like, do anything, try anything can be music, have a go, make mistakes. And I just think that is such an important skill to have learned. Because I think when you want to be successful, you look around you and you see what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
And you kind of find your answer from that instead of using that, but also looking within yourself and just finding what happens and where you end up.
Would you like to conduct an audience, the size that he has, with the whole voice thing? I mean, that's just brilliant, isn't it? When you see those videos of him,
Amazing.
orchestrating the audience.
He's got such an amazing musical knowledge. I don't know how he manages to keep all that information in his head and figure out the chords he's making with them at the same time as conducting all of that. It's like, I don't think I have enough space in my brain to hold all of those things.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, it almost feels, and it's really difficult, I think, actually, for some musicians like that actually get to that kind of level, because on the one hand, it almost feels mathematical. It's that complex, etc. But it's creating stuff that is both complex and seems sort of mathematical, but on the other hand still has the emotion bit of it, because it can be quite easy to kind of almost go too far on the one side. Do you think?
I think it varies from person to person how you feel about it, because I can understand that part of it is you need to sometimes know the rules and understand the rules to know how you're breaking them in a clever way.
Yes.
I don't really work like that. I never have. I'm not really a follow the rules kind of person. And I don't really enjoy being told how to do things often. I'm really a learner who learns through exploring and trying, and then getting feedback and getting the facts later on once I've tried to do something myself. So even though I understand that, and I understand that way of working, I don't think it works for me personally. And I kind of like to stumble across things. And even if it took me way longer than if someone that knew what I was stumbling across and purposefully did it, I don't think it would be as an enjoyable journey for me that way. And I'm not really sure what opinion people who do work more in a technical way would have of the way I work. And they might be like, oh, like, that's how you do it? Or, well, that just seems like it takes a really long time. And I guess that's part of the enjoyment of it for me, is stumbling across things and not really knowing what it was.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In terms of people that write in a very simplistic way, who would you look up to there? There's someone that is just a crafter of songs, as it were, from a sort of, or maybe tell us what is there a song out there that you wish you'd written that is just like so simple? When you picked up an instrument for the first time, you learned it and you feel, oh, no, actually, this is it's simple, but it's genius.
I feel like I know what most people answer, and they kind of go for a musician or a band that's kind of like, from years ago, and their music's carried through. And I always feel I don't really have those sort of role models.
You don't have those touch points?
No, which is, I've always found that really strange, because I know so many people that always reference like the Beatles, like Johnny Cash, all these other artists, and then I just listen to a lot of random artists that nobody knows, but I could pinpoint like a
Try us, come on.
I'm gonna have to search it. There's one song, let me just search it. It's called Broken, and it just hits me every time, and it's so simple. Let me have a look. It's by like Luke, I should know what it is. Luke, Broken. Oh, it's not coming up. I'm sure it's called that. Maybe it's not. Not very good at remembering a favorite song. No, I can't find it. That's awful.
No, it's not actually that surprising. I think because these days, I think we listen to music in a very different way anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're listening to, do you find yourself then, because it sounds like you do you find yourself just like scrolling through things like Spotify and whatever, just listening for, something different that catches your ear and pulls you in emotionally, and then you'll be invested in it?
100%. Like, I love Spotify, the playlist where they suggest things to you.
Yeah.
compared to what you're normally listening to. And I will I'll go through that, and every now and again, like one song will just I'll be like,
Bang.
wow. And then I
Yeah.
put that into my favorites. And it might sit there for quite a while, and I might just listen to that one song. And then I don't know why, but one day randomly I'll be like, you know what, I want to find more about this artist, and then I'll listen to their other songs. And sometimes I'll find that I love all their other music, and then I'm really invested in listening to that artist's music. Or that will be the one song that they did that was like acoustic or stripped back or that style, and the rest of the music doesn't really hit me in the same way. But yeah, I don't know if it's good or bad, but I feel like I am very much in that modern way of listening to music where I think people aren't as often invested fully in each of the artists that sing the songs that they really like. And then every now and again, I will find an artist that I do love all of their music.
When you go down that rabbit hole and you start and you like, oh, I really love this song, etc., and then you put it in the favorites, etc., do you then continue to follow that? Because as a music lover, I do, and I find like you then go like, actually, I find out a bit more about this artist. So my normal routine is this, and see whether this kind of sort of resonates with you or not. So I'll listen to the song. I love the song. I'll put the song into favorites, etc. Then I'll probably hit Wikipedia or something like that, or Google, and then find out more about the artist. And then I'll realize that there's a connection between that artist and someone else that I like. And then I start deep diving into that, because what is the connection? Or they played guitar with that person for, this or that or whatever. And then before you know it, you're down this complete rabbit hole of, there is an interconnectivity here in terms of probably an intellectual interconnectivity between that artist and someone else you liked. And you can start to understand why those relationships might have happened. Do you go there?
I
Tell
don't,
me
but
it's not just me.
that's very interesting. No, that is really interesting to find out that even if you didn't realize they were connected, you find out there's a connection between the artists. I think with a lot of mine, I've not really seen that many connections, but I tend to either come across them on Instagram, TikTok, or Spotify. And then once I'm really invested in what they're doing on one of those platforms, I'll then jump to another platform and kind of follow them there. And then I'll find out a whole load of new things about them that I had no idea about. And then I'm like, this is even more interesting. And then there's just so many layers of it, especially because you've got these kind of main social media places, and people tend to post different things on different ones. I feel like Instagram is still very much like a blog. It's very you make everything visually look very nice when you just land on the page, and you're more careful about what you post visually. And then TikTok is just a bit of anything goes. It doesn't need to look completely conformative with a style. And so people tend to post more personal things on TikTok, and you kind of get this whole other layer of an artist on there.
Yeah, no, exactly. I can give you a great example. A great example was Rosie Plain. I found a Rosie Plain song, fell madly in love with this song because it just had this great simple looping guitar sound with this repetitive vocal bit, and I just thought, this is fantastic. And then as I got into it, I discovered that she played guitar with This Is the Kit, and This Is the Kit were a group that I absolutely adored as well. And I discovered them through a kind of almost Tiny Desk kind of interviews thing that Guy Garvey from Elbow had done on, I think it was BBC Two, etc. But when you start you put all of that together, you start going, it's really exciting music, really, the way that relationships lead to music happening. What relationships have led to your music happening?
Well, actually, so because I'm in Barcelona right now, but I'm actually, you're the first person I'm officially telling this to, but I'm actually moving permanently back to England to continue my music career there. I was kind of based between the two places for a while, and then a year ago I was just based in Barcelona. But when I first moved here, I wasn't actually making music anymore. I'd taken a 7-year break, and I wasn't intending on doing any music at all. And then a friend that I made invited me to come and watch an open mic night where one of her friends was performing. And then when we got there, she put my name on the list without telling me. And then they called my name and I was like, what? And I felt like this pressure. So I went up and I sang like 2 songs and it was all right. But I was like, okay, well, that was that. And I came off and just said, I'm never doing that again. And then someone
Never
came
say
up,
that because it will happen.
yeah, I've learned that lesson. But someone came up to me and said, like, you've got to come and play at my open mic. And I was like, I'm not a musician. I don't want to do music. Like that, I'm done with that. And he kept messaging me on Instagram, like, so are you going to come to the open mic? And so eventually I went to the open mic there. And then actually it was so nice. And then I started playing at other ones, met a big group of musicians here. And a few of them were working with this one producer here in Barcelona. And they've been telling me, you should work with him. And I was very much like, oh, I want to find my own producer. Like I didn't want to work with someone that everyone else had done something with. But then I met him and we ended up recording a single, then an EP, and then an album. And we're still working together now. And just like this whole little journey that I really wasn't intending on taking has like ended up in a place where I'm trying to do music full time. And it's all through these tiny connections that I made along the way and people that kind of pushed me when I didn't know that I kind of needed pushing.
Yeah. See, music is about connections. It is.
Yeah.
It is. There's loads of people out there now that are going, yeah, oh, it's fascinating. You know, I've never gone so far that, you know, I've drawn the family trees of bands and whatever and done all of the genealogy bit of whatever. I mean, I'm fascinated by people that do, and I think that's great that they do all of that. But I think there's a real just to understand those connections and how those connections bring music about. I think there is a real humanness to that, which is great, and I think it explains sometimes why people end up doing what they do, which is great, and explains maybe as well why people write about what they do as well. Because I mean that's a journey and a half, isn't it? I mean that must be coming out in your music. Part of that journey must be coming out in your music.
Yeah, I think like I was just reflecting on, you said how like kind of it's like it's quite vulnerable when you write music and then you take that music to someone else and then you have to be sat in a room hearing the lyrics that you wrote about some sort of awful event that's happened to you, and you have to explain to somebody else what the song is about, what you want the direction to be, and you sort of have to be reliving. It's quite traumatic sometimes. Like there have been songs where I felt like I was like reliving what I'd gone through every time I went into the studio and we worked on the song. And you have to really have a team around you that you trust and that you don't feel judged by, and you feel really have space for you to be human.
Yeah, no, indeed. Tell me, are you ever worried that you're going to get to a place of, because this is obviously an interesting topic for any young musician, but are you ever worried that you're going to get to a place of kind of utopia in terms of your own personal life or whatever, that you know, where everything's so good and okay and whatever, that actually there's no trauma left to write about, and then no one will want to listen to your tales of saccharine loveliness?
Yeah, I do find that when things are calmer, I feel less motivated to write about things that are personal to me. And because a lot of my music, in fact, I would say like 99.9% of my songs come from an experience I've been through, it is harder. If I had a pressure, I don't have any pressure to write. Like nobody's kind of pushing me that like we've got to have an album, this is what we've signed a contract for. Like I have the freedom to do as I please, which I'm very lucky to. But if I did have that pressure, I think there would be times where I would feel really, really stressed, because you can't make something happen to you that you want to write about. You can't force that. And the times when I've sat down and I've thought, do you know what, I want to write a really cool song, and I've tried to write it, like it's been awful, because it's not it's not come from within me. And I think that's not everybody works like that, but for me, that's where my best music comes from, where I'm just writing something for me to process an emotion and to feel it and to understand it, and then all the other stuff comes afterwards.
Yeah.
Well, I'm intrigued. I mean, it would be wonderful to get to a point in my life where I'm not going through really difficult times and really confusing times in my life, that I don't feel so strongly pulled to write. Like, I'm sure in my life, that would be lovely. But then would I miss writing or not? Like, that's a very interesting question that I think is quite unanswerable. And I don't know, do you know anyone that's ever arrived to the point where they've actually just stopped writing music because their life is just, great?
No, I've spoken to some musicians that have said they've got to a point where they then start writing about the happiness, and they've then had to get quite creative about how they write about that. And I guess, and actually my follow-up and kind of final question was really then, actually, does that make you want to, like, or encourage you to, like, live life a bit more in a way? In other words, take more risks in life, actually, like the move back to England or whatever. Does it encourage you to do things like that on the basis of, actually, if I put these things into life where I am a little bit more challenged, etc., the likelihood is I'll keep writing?
Actually, that actually hasn't crossed my mind, but I think it makes me more grateful for music when I'm going through difficult things. Because I think I said to someone once, I said, it's so, I don't know if it was a really bizarre thought to have, but I said, it's so hard being a musician and like feeling things so much that you need to write music to understand it and process it. And then they said to me, no, like, that's a gift. You have all those feelings and you're able to express it and you're able to create something from it. Other people just have those feelings and don't know where to put it. And I'd never seen it like that. And I just thought, wow, like, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky that I can express myself in that way and that it helps me. So it's more that I feel grateful to have it when I am having difficult times, and I guess a little bit grateful to have the difficult time to write from.
There you go. Well, in a strange way, finishing today. Thank you so much for coming to talk to me. But I hope you continue to have some difficult times. Not not in a nasty way, but
low level difficult times.
Low level, of course, to encourage you to. Yeah, and I just think maybe it's then as you carry on going, it's some things are always going to come out and surprise you. There's things that we can't necessarily know that are going to happen in life. I think some artists will find other ways of sort of putting themselves in situations where they then are moved to write because maybe they get involved with a charity, or maybe they go and see something happening in the world that angers them or moves them and whatever, and therefore they can use that muscle in that way. But as I say, sometimes it just it springs out of the blue and you just don't know. I don't know whether you follow Lucy Rose. Do you follow Lucy Rose as an artist?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah.
Okay, so you possibly know, like, with her latest album, a lot of the songs on there were inspired by the fact that when she was pregnant with her child, that she developed this kind of strange osteoarthritis type pain, etc., all over her body, etc. And it was some very peculiar condition. And she was she was almost paralyzed. She was in agony and etc. So she never knew that was going to happen, but it happens, and she can then write out of that. But it's a gift. It is a gift. It's a gift that having that thing that can carry you through these times when they do happen, and also make other people in the world who are perhaps also going through those tough things, etc., feel more comforted. That's brilliant.
Yeah,
What a,
no,
what a, what a
definitely. I
wonderful
think
gift.
one of the goals, I guess, with my music would be for someone to feel the way that I do when I listen to my favorite songs. Yeah.
Brilliant. Emma, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for telling us about your music. Folks, do go and check out Emma's music now. Go and fill your boots on Spotify. But please don't just listen. If you've enjoyed Emma's music when you do listen to it, please do let her know and give her a follow as well. Add it to a playlist, just like the playlists that she creates when she's listening to music as well, so that actually the music spreads a little bit more, and it's good for her as well if you add it to a playlist. Thank you. We will be back with more My Music soon. If you've enjoyed this, please do share with other people. I'm off to buy a video camera now, I think, because that one looks like it's on death's door. Until next time, bye for now.